Make America Great Again, the legacy of Trump's presidency. Donald Trump's campaign and administration became synonymous with the catchphrase, Make America Great Again, MAGA, which sparked both fierce opposition and passionate support across the country. MAGA, which was created as a pledge to restore American strength, wealth, and pride, encapsulated the feelings of those who felt disenfranchised by the existing quo and alienated by political elites. Trump supported measures to reshape the American economy, immigration system, foreign policy, and judiciary throughout his tenure as president from 2017 to 2021. Welcome back to our channel. Today, we are diving deep into the legacy of Donald Trump's presidency and his infamous slogan, Make America Great Again. Whether you love him or loathe him, there is no denying that Trump's time in office was filled with controversy, drama, and unprecedented events that will shape American politics for years to come. The origins and significance of Make America Great Again. Although MAGA as a phrase has roots in earlier political movements, Trump's use of it gives it fresh meaning. The populist message behind MAGA was directed at America's forgotten men and women, voters who felt left out by immigration, globalization, and changing cultural values responded favorably to Trump's vow to drain the political swamp and his message of economic nationalism. The attraction of MAGA transcended politics and evolved into an identity identifier, signifying a desire to restore economic stability and what many perceived to be traditional American values. This foundation of support gave Trump's ideas and leadership style impetus and became a defining feature of his presidency. Economic policies and legacy. Deregulation, tax reform, and safeguarding American industry were the main tenets of Trump's economic strategy, which he said would boost the U.S. economy. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, which lowered corporate tax rates and aimed to promote job growth, was one of his administration's most notable accomplishments. Proponents pointed to pre-pandemic benefits, including declining unemployment and rising stock markets, to support their claim that these tax cuts boosted economic growth. However, some claimed that the tax cuts unfairly favored the rich and expressed worries about how they would affect the federal deficit in the long run. Trump advocated significant deregulation in addition to tax reform, especially in areas like labor, finance, and environmental protection. Under the pretext that reducing business restraints would spur economic growth, his administration repealed more than 100 environmental rules. Opponents raised worries about the environmental effects and questioned the sustainability of putting short-term financial benefits ahead of environmental stewardship. Even if certain corporate sectors thrived under these loosened laws, Trump's last year in office saw a significant change in the economy because of the COVID-19 outbreak. Trump came under fire for his pandemic reaction, even as his administration enacted emergency relief measures, including the CARES Act and the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP. His handling of the issue raised concerns about the presidency's long-term economic effects because the recession brought on by the pandemic substantially undid the strong growth that had been observed during the first 3 years. Immigration and border policies. One of Trump's most distinctive and contentious positions was his immigration policy. The construction of a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, which became a symbol of his presidency, was one of his extreme initiatives. Trump's emphasis on border security resonated with supporters who saw immigration as a major danger to American employment and safety, even though only parts of the wall were finished. The zero-tolerance policy, which resulted in family separations at the border, was one of the most contentious. International outrage and public outcry were generated by the separation of families, especially children from their parents. Although public outcry ultimately led to the policy's revocation, it demonstrated the administration's dedication to a tough immigration policy. The Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals (DACA) program, which offered protections to undocumented immigrants brought to the United States as minors, was another initiative that Trump tried to terminate. His position on DACA and other immigration issues emphasized his image of America as a country with strictly regulated borders, despite the legal challenges he faced in doing so. Trump's immigration legacy is controversial. His supporters contend that his strong approach improved national security, while his detractors claim that his policies were heartless and alienated immigrant communities. Foreign policy and international relations. Trump's America First foreign policy changed how the United States handles international affairs. By removing the United States from a number of international organizations and accords, he adopted a more isolationist posture. His administration's emphasis on putting American economic interests ahead of international environmental responsibilities, for example, was reflected in his decision to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement. Trump also pulled out of the Iran nuclear agreement, claiming it did little to stop Iran's nuclear aspirations. Another main topic was trade policy, namely his trade war with China. In an effort to close the trade gap and restore manufacturing jobs to the U.S., Trump levied tariffs on Chinese imports. Some observers claim that this tactic increased tensions with China and hurt American consumers, while others maintain that it helped safeguard American business. In an effort to close the trade gap and restore manufacturing jobs to the U.S., Trump levied tariffs on Chinese imports. Some observers claim that this tactic increased tensions with China and hurt American consumers, while others maintain that it helped safeguard American business. In an effort to stop nuclear development, Trump spoke with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un directly, defying diplomatic convention. Despite being significant, these discussions did not provide many tangible denuclearization outcomes. It is still unclear if Trump's America First policies improved or worsened America's standing in the world, and his unconventional approach to diplomacy has left a complicated foreign policy legacy. Trump's economic policies: tax cuts, deregulation, and trade wars. The 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was one of Trump's most important pieces of legislation. With the goal of encouraging company investment, job creation, and general economic growth, this comprehensive reform lowered the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%. Although many of the individual benefits were scheduled to expire in the upcoming years, the measure significantly reduced individual tax rates and almost increased the standard deduction. Critics contend that the act disproportionately favored the wealthiest and increased the national debt by more than $1 trillion, while supporters contend that it promoted economic growth and encouraged firms to reinvest in the U.S. Economists continue to disagree on the tax law's potential long-term economic advantages. Another important tenet of Trump's economic plan was his dedication to deregulation. In an effort to lower administrative barriers for companies, his administration repealed a number of labor, financial, and environmental rules. Environmentalists cautioned of long-term harm to the environment and public health, even as this strategy spurred expansion in industries like manufacturing and energy, especially oil and gas. Among the environmental reversals was the United States' withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord, a decision that caused controversy both at home and abroad since it represented a break from international efforts to address climate change. Trump's trade policies, particularly his stance toward China, are a defining feature of his economic legacy. Tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods were imposed during the U.S.-China trade war in an effort to address problems like trade imbalances and intellectual property theft. Although these tariffs increased costs for American consumers and businesses, they also changed the dynamics of international trade. Trump also renegotiated NAFTA, substituting the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, with clauses that safeguarded American labor and manufacturing standards. Although his trade policies were praised for putting American workers first, their effects on the economy over the long run are still not entirely clear. Social and cultural impact, populism, polarization, and media relations. Trump's administration hastened societal fragmentation and polarization in the United States. A large portion of Americans who felt excluded by the political elite found solace in his frequently confrontational and unorthodox remarks. Trump was able to engage with his supporters directly and circumvent the media by using social media, especially Twitter. Although many found resonance in this strategy, it also helped foster a culture of distrust against conventional journalism, which Trump has often referred to as fake news. Trump's ascension to power brought a surge of anti-establishment enthusiasm that upended long-standing political conventions. Trump attracted a devoted following by challenging the presidential etiquette and portraying himself as a defender of the regular people against the swamp of Washington, D.C. However, because Trump's strategy was frequently viewed as polarizing and alienating to those who disagreed with him, this populism also widened political rifts. Additionally, Trump's presidency increased racial tensions in the U.S. His famous statement that there were very fine people on both sides in reaction to the Charlottesville demonstration in 2017 was heavily condemned for being ambiguous about white supremacist violence. Furthermore, his management of the Black Lives Matter demonstrations after George Floyd's death highlighted racial and police divisions in the country. Nationalism and immigration. Trump's America First stance frequently mirrored nationalism, which was a major motive of his presidency. This viewpoint sought to put American interests first in both global and domestic affairs, sometimes at the expense of enduring international partnerships. His immigration policy was one of the most contentious applications of this strategy. Trump believed that immigration was a threat to national security, particularly illegal immigration. He put forth a comprehensive immigration strategy that prioritized skills-based immigration, limited family-based immigration, and restricted asylum. Building a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border came to represent Trump's immigration policies. Trump was able to reallocate military money to finance some of the wall's construction over congressional resistance. These policies triggered a humanitarian discussion and brought attention to the growing divide around immigration in the United States, despite Trump's claims that they protected American jobs and security. With restrictions on refugee admissions and laws requiring asylum claimants to stay in Mexico while awaiting their hearings, Trump's attitude to refugees and asylum seekers was severely constrained. Critics claimed that this undermined America's humanitarian role, while his supporters saw it as an essential measure to safeguard American borders. Media and communications. Trump had a complicated and frequently hostile relationship with the media. By using Twitter frequently, he was able to connect with his fans directly and avoid using more conventional media outlets. Trump used the term fake news to characterize media outlets that he felt misrepresented his views, and this unfiltered approach drew both praise and criticism. His contempt for specific news outlets stoked the continuing discussion concerning the propagation of false information and the role of the media in politics. A new era of political communication, in which alternative media sources gained popularity and established news sources were widely questioned, was represented in Trump's media strategy. The current split news consumption environment is the result of his administration's tense relationship with the press, which fueled a widening gap in American confidence in the media. COVID-19 pandemic response. Trump's leadership and responsiveness to an unprecedented global crisis were put to the strain during the COVID-19 pandemic, which became a defining feature of his presidency. Trump's approach, which at first downplayed the virus's severity and was slammed for its erratic messaging, left states to come up with their own plans. There was intense discussion on his administration's focus on restoring the economy, in spite of an increase in cases, with some supporters concurring that the nation could not afford extended lockdowns. However, one noteworthy accomplishment in the administration's pandemic reaction was Operation Warp Speed, which sped up the creation and dissemination of COVID-19 vaccinations. The public's perception of Trump's overall response to the pandemic remained divided in spite of this achievement, with detractors pointing to lost chances for more robust federal leadership. Influence on U.S. politics and media. The Trump administration fundamentally altered American politics, particularly in the areas of media relations and communication. He was able to engage directly with the public and avoid traditional media by using social media, especially Twitter, on a regular basis. However, his combative style with the media and frequent use of the term fake news exacerbated mistrust of mainstream media and further polarized his followers and critics. Trump's impact on American politics culminated in the January 6, 2021, Capitol riot. Despite the lack of proof, his persistent accusations of electoral fraud stoked mistrust in democratic institutions. Many critics contend that Trump's comments played a role in the events of that day, even though he denounced the violence. The violence, which symbolizes the divisive and occasionally disorderly condition of American politics under Trump's presidency, has grown to be an important part of his legacy. The Republican Party has undergone a transformation due to the emergence of the Trumpism movement, which emphasizes nationalism, economic protectionism, and skepticism toward globalism. Many Republicans continue to support Trump's ideas and language, demonstrating his enduring influence within the party. The GOP's future and the political scene at large have been significantly impacted by this change, which represents a move away from conventional conservative ideas and toward a more populist stance. Thanks for tuning in to today's video. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Trump's presidency, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. And remember, whether you're a Trump supporter or a critic, we can all agree on one thing: the legacy of his presidency will be one for the history books. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.